Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
The nature of consciousness is widely debated, yet the question of what constitutes true consciousness persists. The divine is also attracting much attention. But what does it mean to be divine? Does a point of convergence exist between the divine and consciousness? Mission Evolution Radio TV show is coming to you around the world on the Exxon Broadcast Network, xzbn.net. With us this hour to explore the nature of the divine and consciousness is the author of Soul Making, The Realization of the Mystical Life, Douglas Gillette. Douglas has an M.A.R.S. from the University of Chicago and a Master of Divinity from Chicago Theological Seminary. Douglas is a best-selling author of 9 books on depth psychology and spirituality. He recently retired as a teacher in the Emeritus program at the Oakton College, where he taught for 20 years. He's still teaching, facilitating Zoom, and ongoing series of book discussion groups. Douglas is also a retired pastor and a pastoral counselor who continues to serve as a life guide. His website, douglasgilletteCreations.com. Douglas, thanks for joining us on Mission Evolution.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's wonderful. We were just talking about the difference in weather, and it's not too different. It's cold all over, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't live in the cold and try to move south, there are hurricanes.
Yes,
So
yes.
there's no escape.
There's a delight one place or another.
Right.
So your bio says you have an M.A.R.S. from the University of Chicago. Outside of the red planet, what is an M.A.R.S.?
Master of Arts, of course, of Religious Studies.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, specialized in the emphasis there was religious studies, emphasis on religion and literature.
Oh, okay. So,
Yeah.
with all that, what drew you to become a pastor?
I always felt I always felt called by the divine, by colloquially God, and to communicate with others the sense of wonder, joy, awe, mystery, a little bit of fear, uh, terror, even gratitude and love. I just always felt, didn't think about it. It's just what I felt I was called to do.
So, where does the fear and terror come into the divine?
Well, it comes in for me with, in the first place, the sense, the realization of the vastness of reality, capital R, its multi-layered nature and the bizarreness of that. And also, of course, uh, the presence and enacting of evil, both natural evil and moral, ethical evil.
Okay, so we'll get into evil a little later in the program.
Yeah.
You have to kind of build up to that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it would appear from your writing and teachings you don't exactly fit the traditional pastoral box. When and why did you step out of that box?
Oh, yeah. No, that's true. For years, I looked around and experimented with the established religions, with various spiritual paths and so forth. Also, depth psychology, which I used a lot in my life guide work. Um, and I tried to find where I fitted. And I found that I didn't actually fit in anybody's box exactly. But I did find the Christian mythos. Uh, Love is offered, love is rejected, and destroyed. Even love is triumphant. I found that compelling. That narrative, uh, and because that's life, as far as I'm concerned. I got out because after helping 5 churches to grow over a span of off and on 20 years, um, uh, just too, for me, just too narrow. Uh, let's put it that way. There was an invisible sign outside the doors of all the churches I served, which said, "Check brain at door." And I, it just finally didn't work for me.
So do you see when we're working with Christianity, do you see Jesus as a metaphor or an allegory or an actual person?
I see him as an actual person who has been uh, layered over with a lot of different people's spiritual traditions and myths, and he's rendered um, archetypal as the archetypal connection or of the divine with the human. And so I love Jesus and his teachings, those that can be, thought of as authentic. Um, and a lot of the words that are put into his mouth by later writers, I think, well, that's okay because he should have said that, even if he didn't, you know. And and
Kind of like Einstein.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Legendary people get all kinds of wise sayings ascribed to them, which is fine. Uh, so I see the Christian mythos as the statement of the core of our core condition as persons. And I don't mean to limit that to that idea of person to humans. I think everything is person or person-ish. But I see, at least potentially with us, with our capacities to abstract, imagine, and so forth, as well as our right here and now embodiments, I do have. It's not a thought exactly; it's a feeling experienced that everything is divine, and B, we, at least on this planet, are special focal points for that. And I think the Christian mythos really identifies that, although it tends to, in my view, project all the inner truth for each of us onto that man.
He ends up being a target for all sorts of stuff, doesn't he?
That is true.
So what is a PSI experience?
A psi experience, there's a wide range of these things, but they are somewhat altered states of consciousness or awareness, I would say, that generally are not wished for, willed, or intended, but it come to us. I think they are, well, I think we are immersed, all things, in a psychic medium or spiritual medium. We swim in that.
By
That's
medium, you mean substance rather
so,
than a
yeah,
mediumship? Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
right. Substance, and that beneath are the necessary repression barriers that separate ego consciousness from the rest of all that is. Beneath that are levels, and those levels are inhabited. So psi experiences can be, I think, I think that repression barrier can be porous. For many people, it's rock hard, but for sensitive people, it can be porous. And up through those pores leaks or appears or manifests entities or entity like um, consciousnesses of some kind, and they present themselves to us. I mean, it can be, it's not all that. Some of it is just connection in the psychic, within the psychic medium between different personalities or persons. So that we're talking about ESP experiences, and I'm talking about that, and precognition, and all of the above.
So what's the difference between psi phenomena and spiritual experience?
In my experience, psi phenomena are tend to be sort of on a horizontal continuum. They some of them can be quite dark. Some of them are, okay. They're just in different areas along a horizontal continuum. But you feel an oddness, or sometimes wonder. Sometimes I do anyway. Uh, a lot of sort of, oh, okay. And then there is a little bit of fear connected with some of them. I mean, I've never invited them consciously. I don't want that as part of my life. It just shows up. I have read many people who are really sensitive and connected with, the collective consciousness, the psychic medium. Uh, they would rather give back that gift that keeps giving because it interrupts your life.
Yeah.
A
So
lot of it.
it's time for us to take a station break.
Oh,
Doug, Douglas and I will return very shortly, so don't go
we
away.
didn't talk about the spiritual.
This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. Can you expand your consciousness? With us this hour discussing consciousness is Douglas M. Gillette. Douglas is the author of Soul Making, The Realization of the Mystical Life. Douglas, we kind of had to leave a cliffhanger. I had asked you what's the difference between PSI phenomenon and a spiritual experience, and you
Mhm.
kind of covered PSI phenomena.
Yeah.
What's the difference between that and spiritual experience?
For me, spiritual experience is expansive. It's lifting. It's light. It's joyful. There's, again, of course, the element of a little bit of fear, but the gratitude, an expanded sense of myself at a different register, at a higher register, and beyond that, and as a part of that, the divine. So the size stuff for me, in my experience anyway, is okay. All right, this is part of reality. It's a little odd, but it's part of reality that I normally live. Whereas the spiritual stuff, the spiritual experiences, it lifts me from the horizontal plane to a more kind of vertical trip.
Do you see the lifting as a raising of frequency, whereby of spirituality, whereby the psi experiences bleed through from the reality that we're in?
The size stuff, in my experience, or theorizing about it, arises from layers below, we could say, but also, yeah, um, normally unseen or unexperienced aspects along this horizontal continuum that we're mostly conscious of being in. And the spiritual stuff for me, there's a sense of rising above that to more expansive, more fulfilling, brighter. I mean, I think love, space. Uh,
So more evolutionary, really.
yeah, I think so. I think so. You could say that. Yeah.
So, what constitutes as consciousness expanding experience?
Hmm. Um, lots of things for me. Um, Always triggered by something that could be music, could be a setting, it could be just something that I'm reading. Uh, but what it is for me is a usually unexpected sense of shifting to a higher register. It can be sudden insight into something, um, realization of a connection to whatever, and maybe all that is, but it's an expansive state. Here's an example. When I was a little kid, I went to a camp, summer camp, for boys in the woods by the river and all that sort of thing. And our last night, the end of the summer, was it was night, and we were led by our cabin leaders through the forest, different paths through the forest. He was carrying a pitch torch to a central kind of dancing ground and so on, where there was a fake, but nonetheless moving Indian-like ceremony. But anyway, going the thrill, I just felt this thrill. I was the last one in line. You couldn't see a thing except the torch up in front, and maybe, up the trees were just, closing above you, but I could see the sky, the night sky. And I just felt the thrill of the night adventure and all that sort of thing. But then I looked up, and I just felt like I wanted to open my arms and run and lift up into that and embrace that and be all of that.
So in contrast, the world that we live in day by day, where there's a lot of greed and competition and exploitation, is that the antithesis of the spiritual experience?
Those things you just described, I would say, are the antithesis. Yeah. This is as C.S. Lewis said, I think, this is the shadowlands. There is light here; it shines through, but this is an incomplete or fragmented or fragmentary level aspect of reality, capital R, in my view.
When we're all exposed and large doses thereof, of the matrix, if you will, of
Hmm.
the darker things, um, how do we transcend that to have the expansive
Mm, mm.
experiences?
I'm not sure exactly. I mean, as I've said, these things just happen to me. I don't wish them exactly. I don't certainly don't will them, and I don't know techniques of meditation to get to them. I know that others do have techniques that set them into the higher vibrations or dimensions.
Well, the example you just gave involved nature and the elements, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah, that is true. That's true. You can prime yourself for those transcendent experiences through setting, through the arts and music, through you can even do it by studying quantum physics and cosmology. I mean, and philosophy, theology, depth psychology. There's a yeah, there are triggers everywhere. I think for those who are sensitive to them, that okay, a switch just clicked and I'm ascending. So I don't have particular techniques. I know a lot of people do.
Does having an intention to be available for that make a difference?
It probably does. I was born with that intention, so I don't know what it's like to not have it. You know, I was just born like that.
Why do you
Uh,
suppose? Does it feel like there was a mission behind it?
oh, I think probably. I think probably. Uh, I don't know, but whatever it is, I don't take credit for it. It just is, some people are born this way, some people are born that way, and I was born that way.
It has its challenges, no doubt. Now, here's a good one for you. Douglas, what's reality?
Oh, I don't know, and I don't know anyone who does know. Um, what I can say, theorizing, is that I'm aware of what I think is a very thin sliver of it. Uh, and the reason I think it's much, much more than that thin sliver is daily life consciousness and so forth, is these intrusions that we're talking about from below, let's say, and from above, or just sideways even. I don't know what it is, but what it is for me is the fragmentary. Well, I'm talking about this reality. It's God. I mean, it's the divine. It's some super cosmic consciousness that manifests in whatever dimensions it manifests.
So if we aren't conscious of the super divine God,
Mhm.
are we not conscious of reality?
We're all sleepwalking, in my view. Some of us more than others. So yes, I would say yes, we are not. And what we can be aware of, I mean, sharply aware of at times, is especially this level that we're on most of the time. But we can get strong intuitions and inklings, and be lifted or plunged downward, to use the usual metaphor. But yeah, I think we are far less conscious than we give ourselves credit for.
So what we might consider ordinary reality is hardly a tip of the iceberg.
Right, right. I know a lot of people, a lot of mystics, and I don't think of myself as a mystic in spite of the subtitle of the book that you mentioned. But it's uh, how do I say this? I think that tip of the iceberg, yes. Uh, consciousness, the consciousness that we're usually aware of is the tip of the iceberg. But this is a really big iceberg, and it doesn't stop. It is fathomless. It is, I mean, that's why I say I don't know what reality is, capital R, because it's just way too big.
Is our perception of reality also pixelated, as in there's a lot of things in
Mm.
the spaces between what we perceive?
And yes, we perceive mosaics. Uh, our senses are closely tuned to to the kind or the version of reality, in my view, that allows us to flourish and to survive and flourish. It's pragmatic, it's practical, uh, and but as I say, we do get hints. I don't know what the structure really is of even this level of reality. I know it is fundamentally electromagnetic, and in that sense, among others, we could think of it as pixelated. Um, and
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no, it's okay.
it is that time for us to take another station break.
Okay.
Douglas and I will be right back to continue our discussion. So please, you stay right there. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. Is the divine the same for everyone? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. With us discussing divinity is Douglas M. Gillette. His website, douglasgilletteCreations.com. Douglas, what are the challenges of reconciling your pastoral training with the current view of reality?
With the current view of reality, um, my current view or the collective current view?
The collective, the general
Yeah.
view.
Um, well, I think I mentioned before that I think we're all sleepwalking, and some more than others. So I think that my theological training, first of all, it was an expression of who I've always been. So it wasn't anything that was new to me. And I'd always recognized that there's far more to, let's say, spirit or reality than most people are generally aware of, including myself. Um, there are many current views of reality, but to the extent that we are for the most part, and this over much of the planet, um, in modernity, still, even though we're in postmodernity, some of us, in modernity, which says that what you see is what you get, and this is all there is. Okay, what can be measured, weighed, etc. Uh, and so, any theological uh, training, even I would say a big chunk of philosophy, is already outside of that view. And that's part of the conflict that is happening in many countries, in many societies, is between I would say, a truncated and overly literalistic version of science on the one hand, and a truncated and overly literalistic religious side. So that, of course, when you retreat to your corners and don't allow middle ground for mixing and thinking with each other and so forth, you get polarization. So I have always experienced myself as a mediator, a mixer. So I don't experience the pain of the disjunction as much as, and I have ways of dealing with that by transcending that are not available to a lot of people.
Isn't that what a religion was originally designed for, is to
Mhm.
bridge the gap between spirit and the mundane?
Yes, I think so. I mean, you can bring in political theory and all kinds of stuff,
Oh,
sociology.
let's not.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think the core of all the religious traditions uh, is that experience of somehow all of this that we live in this range is not all there is, and but it isn't. You don't diss it either. I mean, some religious traditions do, but I think it's all ideally enfolded within and transfigured by the realization that everything is uh, spiritual, the divine. I do think that's the core of all religions. Yeah, that experience.
So, as in spiritual, the divine, in defining divine, is it
Mm.
the same as the unified field? Would you define divine for us, please?
Yeah, I don't think it's the same thing as I think the unity that physicists and philosophers are looking for in scientists of various kinds in this world, in this material, as we call it, an energetic realm, is a spin-off from real unity, or it's a parochial. Our universe is a parochial version, and the search for the theory of everything, uh, eh, you know, that goes on in science, particularly cosmology and physics, is fine, incomplete, fine at this level, but what's missing in the physicist's version of the theory of everything is the spiritual, or the alternative dimensions.
So, are you saying those are the same? The alternative dimensions are the same as spiritual?
Uh, they're parts of it. They're parts of it. I think all finite manifestations and these other dimensions I'm talking about with their inhabitants are finite too. Uh, at least at levels that are easily accessible, uh, and that can be pictured and imagined. I think beyond there's reality beyond what can be pictured or directly experienced. So I would say, for me, the levels are all valid. They're all as if they were real, and as if is good enough for the divine.
What we've been talking about finite consciousness here, I
Yeah.
take it. Um, Are we restricted to finite consciousness because the only thing we recognize as consciousness is what we can see, smell, hear, taste, or touch?
I don't think that we are restricted. I think because we have evolved as animals in a finite world who have certain neurological structures and so forth and function uh, by electromagnetism for the most part. Yeah, and in an environment in which it's a life or death thing. So our senses are extremely important agencies for keeping us here as long as we are here. Uh, and it's along those neural circuits and so forth that we do experience other dimensions too, which is why I talk about God as being self-finitizing. God has to present God's self to us in ways that there's a caveat here too, but in ways that for the most part we experience with the wiring and the structure that we have. Now, do I think that we've evolved to have? Do I think that there are other ways of experiencing that go beyond the sensory and the brain wiring? Yeah, I think we get glimpses and intuitions of what else we are.
So, how does the divine interface with finite consciousness? How do they
Hmm.
talk?
Well, I don't know. We could ask the divine, but the answers are likely to be answers that we couldn't understand anyway. But I think in a the handle that I get on it is the brain is the agency for communications which are initially infinite, of course. Um, there's a kind of a step down transformer kind of way of getting to our brains, any other brains, the brain of an ant. Uh, how that is accomplished, I of course don't know, but in an ultimate sense, I don't think there's any ultimate difference between the infinite and the finite.
So, what about you were talking about the brain, but what about the heart? And what about
Yeah, the whole yeah, yeah, the whole body really, and
okay?
the whole embodiment, and the view and experience, sight, sound, smells, the touch, all hearing, all the senses that equip us as whole bodies, but especially with the this to function all of in a material world, material in quotes, because we don't actually know what that is.
So Douglas, where does metaphor and allegory fit in here? Because I know it's used a lot in most all religious texts.
Mm,
It also, if you're studying altered states of consciousness and that sort of thing, where people are trying to connect with the divine,
yeah,
it comes a lot of the information comes through allegorically because we don't have the concepts.
right.
So how does that fit into all of this?
Well, as Plato said, when he would get to a point in his dialogue where his questioner is asking him, uh, okay, so how does that work? And he switches from discursive thought, or logical thought or reason to myth. And he has to tell a myth about it. That's metaphor, or that is, he has to go to the metaphorical or the symbolic or the, and tell a little parable. Uh, and then his interlocutor will ask him, do you really believe that? And he will say, well, I think it's something like that. Yeah. So metaphor is, I think, a way station, as Ibn Arabi would talk about it, my favorite Sufi mystic, uh, a way station or an antechamber or a way to absorb or to
So it's part of the
commune with.
it's part of the
It
transduction.
it is. It is.
Okay.
Yeah, for me it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, uh, yeah.
So it's again that magic moment. We're going to need to take another station break. Please stay with us as Douglas and I continue to explore depth psychology and spirituality. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. Is anything truly evil? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. We're continuing our discussion with Douglas M. Gillette. His website, douglasgilletteCreations.com. So now that time has arrived when we can delve into the dark side. Is there truly evil?
Well, I don't know at an ultimate level. Over on the other side of Cardinal Nicholas of Cusa's metaphorical wall of paradise, where opposites and apparent opposites somehow come together. But here, yes, there is. It's usually divided into natural evil and moral ethical evil. Natural evil being catastrophic destruction of things, entities that apparently don't feel, they don't have the apparatus to feel or experience. Although there are those who would question even that maybe a collapsing star does feel something, not the way we do. Moral ethical evil, I think, is an emergent property of life. When we can identify it as evil when somebody gets hurt. Collapsing stars theoretically don't get hurt, but beings that have, well, even before neural systems and so forth, uh, get hurt. They feel pain, and I mean physical and maybe even psychological pain, even for lower life, very lower life forms, single cell creatures. Uh,
But it isn't pain part of process? I mean, I've given birth
well, yeah,
and it's a natural process and
yes,
it's painful. So where does
yes,
that fit in there?
it is in moderate doses. And I'm talking about individuals now. I don't really care what nature's all about and what its process is and what it thinks it's doing. I mean, I have some ideas about that, but um, uh, to the children all over the world in various places, adults too, who are dying horrible deaths, their parents are distraught. I think asking those kids sitting in puddles of their own blood with arms and legs missing to think of this as process is a little much. Um, it is evil to destroy a sentient being. It's morally, ethically evil. Oh, but again, I think reality is layered. So evil is as real and uh, as it needs to be, as it is in our experience on this level. I don't know about higher levels. That's up
So
to God.
so are you defining evil as destruction?
Not destruction pure and simple, because some destruction is it's certainly the prelude to greater creativity, or can be, as
Necessary
a
for life, actually.
for life, yeah, at all. Um, so no, I wouldn't describe it as destruction pure and simple. I would describe moral ethical evil as the conscious, semi-conscious, or unconscious intention to destroy the well-being of another.
So what that would include if they don't necessarily care one way or the other, if they destroy somebody else, it's just getting what they want and whatever that takes.
Hmm. Yeah, that
Okay.
and that and most moral ethical evil, I think, is generated by malignant narcissism.
Yeah, and greed, yes. So you speak of the place of priesthood. What do you mean by that?
Pardon? Could you repeat that?
You speak of the place of priesthood. What do you mean by that?
Place of priesthood. Do I really?
Yeah, you do.
Okay. Wow. I don't remember that exactly.
Okay, well,
Uh,
we can move along. And at this point in the show, it's my turn to ask you, what's your mission?
okay. My mission, taken many forms, but basically it's to help others to experience higher, deeper, more wondrous, uh, frightening at times, but joyful. I mean, God. I mean, experience the vastness of who they themselves are outside the register of daily life. And once you can do that or begin to do that, I think there are all kinds of benefits, barring war, famine, plague, etc. And that is a happier, more fulfilled life for yourself, more generative, mutually caring life for others, and there's another benefit, and that would be a humane society, unlike the societies that we have now. So my mission has always been to awaken, to say, "Hey, wow, look at this," eh, you know, and to help people have that experience, that set of experiences, really.
Very nice. So you mentioned God, and then you mentioned the individual. Do you see God as residing in each individual?
I do, yeah, yeah. Each individual, not limited to humans. Each individual, according to its capacity to uh, feel and then think and so forth. Um, yeah, I do. For me, it's all God manifesting or showing up in these different ways. And so, at one level, just the whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, the manifestation of this particular level of reality is, is God self finitizing as the dimension as all the inhabitants of it. At another level, it's God luring those entities toward higher, more complete, more whole, more, you know, more ultimately more divine consciousness and levels of being.
So tell us a little bit about nature and consciousness.
I think I think nature is a coherent entity. It is what the universe is made of, and other universes, if they exist, and other dimensions are probably nature too, expressions of nature. Nature with a capital N. Um, I have two theories. Like all, I didn't invent these, but I feel them. Nature is a an indirect expression of the divine, indirect and partial. Um, on the one hand, I think I can say as a panentheist, this is God, as I just did a few minutes ago. This is the divine, right here, right now. Uh, and at the same time, yes, while it is only a part of the divine. I do think nature is conscious, or at least semi-conscious. Uh, I think it is a person or personish thing, entity, that for whatever reasons uh, has become not totally, but significantly separated from its divine source and is trying to find its way back. And one way that it does that is through evolution.
So do you see humans as separate from nature?
Yes and no. We are very much, I think, an expression of the beauty, the wonder, the creativity, and the violence of our planet. We're very much expressions of the earth. Uh, and animals descended from a long, long line, most importantly, the primates, and even more importantly and directly, the great apes, and especially the chimpanzees and bonobos. So we are
So
nature.
so you're of the mind, which not all religions are, that
Right.
we did indeed evolve from primates.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I am. The evidence, I think, is absolutely overwhelming, but I do think we are also more than that. It's the what else that impinges on our animal natures and awakens the not that it's not present in some of the other primates and other animals, but in us we have specially designed or manifested psyches and total beings that we are more expansively receptive to, let's put it that way, what lies beyond animality.
How can we know that? I mean, we don't experience through an animal. So
Yeah,
how can we possibly know that?
we ultimately we don't know anything.
Well put. Well put. So it's just about time for us to close. But do you think that by associating with nature, humans can find rebalance themselves from the dark that we've been
Mm,
exposed
mm.
to?
Again, I'm going to say yes and no. Yes, in that we, because of our oneness with nature and because we are expressions of
You know,
nature.
I hate to interrupt, but we're going to have to close out.
Oh
So,
no,
yeah,
oh
I'm
no.
sorry. It's been so fun. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Douglas, thanks for coming on the show. Our guest this hour has been Douglas M. Gillette. Douglas is the author of Soul Making, The Realization of the Mystical Life. To find out more about Douglas, where you can find his books and all he has to offer, visit his website, douglasgilletteCreations.com. This has been Mission Evolution with Gwilda Wiyaka. For more information or to enjoy our past archived episodes, visit www.missionevolution.org. Be sure to join us right here next time. This mission will continue, bringing information, resources, and support to our rapidly evolving world.